The envelope was thick, the kind that whispered importance as soon as it touched your hands. Ivory with a gold seal, her name written in calligraphy she didn't recognize, Leah Winters. She turned it over, uncertain, before finally slicing it open with her nail. Inside was a trifold invitation on elegant cardstock. Daniel Harris and Elena Rivera request the honor of your presence at their wedding celebration, Saturday, June 15th, 4 p.m. Sycamore Hill Vineyard, upstate New York. She read it once, then again, then a third time, as if somewhere between the lines the meaning would change. Daniel. Her Daniel. Well, not hers anymore. Hadn't been for 5 years. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding and leaned back against her kitchen counter. The silence in her small Brooklyn apartment felt heavier than usual, as if the invitation had dragged every memory it could find and dumped them at her feet. They had been together for 6 years. They had shared an apartment, dreams, Spotify playlists, Sunday mornings. They had even picked out names for kids they never had. And when it ended, when the relationship cracked under the weight of mismatched timelines, career ambitions, and unresolved traumas, they didn't scream. They simply unraveled, slowly, quietly. He had moved out on a Thursday. She still remembered that. It had rained. Now, 5 years later, he was getting married to someone else. She sat down on the couch and stared at the invitation resting on the coffee table. It felt surreal, like a trick of the universe. Her phone buzzed. Cassie, just got my invite too, you okay? Leah typed and erased her response 3 times before settling on, Leah, didn't expect it, that's all. A minute later, Cassie called. You sound stunned. Leah gave a soft laugh. Wouldn't you be? Cassie was quiet for a beat. I mean, it's weird, but I think it's kind of a peace offering. I doubt he expects you to go. Then why invite me? Maybe to show there's no bad blood. Or maybe because he wants you to see he's okay, and maybe you need to see it too. Leah hated how well Cassie knew her. I don't know if I can do it, she said. I don't know if I want to. You don't have to decide today. Just don't toss it. Think about it. After hanging up, Leah placed the invitation back in the envelope and tucked it into her bookshelf. Not thrown away, not displayed, just hidden for now. That night, as she lay in bed, the memories came like tide water. She remembered Daniel's laugh, the way his eyes crinkled when he was trying to look serious. She remembered their shared jokes, his terrible cooking, and the way he always sang in the shower. But she also remembered the distance, the arguments over missed dinners, the nights he chose work over her, and the months she convinced herself that was fine. It hadn't been one big betrayal. It had been 1,000 small disappointments until one day they realized they were more roommates than partners. And yet, even now, the idea of him with someone else left a bruise on her heart. 2 weeks later, she brought it up in therapy. Dr. Calder glanced up from her notepad. How did it feel, getting the invitation? Like a gut punch, Leah admitted, but also weirdly like closure. Except not really. Maybe it just stirred up things I thought I'd buried. Why do you think it feels unfinished, Leah? Twisted the band of her ring, a habit, though she hadn't worn a real one in years. Because we never really talked about why it didn't work. We just drifted apart. No blame, no big fight. Just goodbye. Dr. Calder nodded. So it didn't end cleanly. You didn't have a defining moment, just a quiet end. That can leave open wounds, Leah sighed. And now he's starting this big, beautiful new chapter, and I'm here. Still, healing isn't failure, Leah. Healing isn't a race. Leah looked out the window at the tree-lined street below. Spring was pushing its way into the world, buds on branches, birdsong in the distance. A reminder that endings could be beginnings too. Do you think I should go? She asked. I think. The question is, do you want to go? I don't know. Then let's try this, Dr. Calder said. What's the version of you that would feel at peace, sitting there watching him marry someone else? Can you picture her? Leah closed her eyes. For a moment she tried. The image was blurry, but it was there. A version of herself who could smile, who could genuinely wish him well, who could walk away without that ache in her chest. I think I'd like to be her, she whispered. The RSVP card sat on her table for days. Each time she walked by, she'd glance at it, heart thudding. One evening, after a long shift at the design studio, she poured herself a glass of wine, turned on some jazz, and finally sat down. She ticked the little box. Will attend her hands. Trembled slightly, but she sealed the envelope and dropped it in the outgoing mail slot before she could change her mind. Cassie was floored. "You're seriously going?" "I think I need to," Leah said. Cassie stared at her. "You're either the bravest woman I know or secretly insane." "Probably both." They shared a laugh, but Leah felt the weight of the choice in her chest. This wasn't about Daniel. It was about her. About finishing a sentence that had lingered too long. She picked out a soft blue dress, not too showy, not too somber, and booked a room at a quiet bed and breakfast near the venue. On the drive upstate, Leah took the long route, past blooming fields and winding country roads. She let the music fill the silence and rolled the windows down. It had been ages since she took a trip just for herself. Maybe this wasn't just closure. Maybe it was something else. A turning point. The vineyard came into view just before sunset. Sycamore Hill was exactly as she imagined, rolling green. Hills, rustic wooden beams, white chairs set in perfect rows. She parked and stared at the venue from a distance, her heart fluttering. People were already arriving, dressed in soft pastels and summer linens. Laughter floated on the breeze. For a split second, Leah considered driving away. Then she thought of that version of herself, the peaceful one, the whole one. And she stepped out of the car. She walked slowly, heart pounding, heels clicking on the stone path. A greeter asked for her name and guided her toward the ceremony area, and then she saw him, Daniel, in a navy suit standing under a canopy of white roses. He hadn't changed much. Maybe a little more silver at the temples, a little more settled. In his smile, he didn't see her. Not yet. She took a seat near the back, careful not to draw attention. Her hands trembled slightly as she smoothed her dress. The music swelled. A hush fell over the crowd, and then Elena appeared, radiant in a lace gown, her smile lit with something Leah hadn't seen in Daniel in years. Contentment, ease. As they exchanged vows, Leah listened, really listened. And instead of sorrow, she felt something else. Not bitterness, not longing, but peace. Daniel had found his path, and somehow, maybe she was finally ready to find hers. Leah didn't stay for the reception. She slipped out just after the ceremony ended, before the clinking of glasses and swirling of dresses and laughter could make her second-guess herself. The moment she stood, she felt Daniel's eyes flicker toward her, brief, surprised, and soft. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. That was enough. Back at the bed and breakfast, she sat on the edge of the bed, toes unstrapping aching heels, unsure whether she felt relieved or hollow. Both maybe. She pulled the pins from her hair and let it fall, then lay back and stared at the ceiling fan rotating lazily above. Her phone buzzed. "Cassie, did you do it?" "Leah, I did. I went. It was beautiful and hard and weirdly okay." "Cassie, I'm proud of you, Leah. Seriously." "That took guts, Leah. Thanks. I think I'm finally ready to let him go." Cassie didn't reply right away, and that was fine. Some moments didn't need commentary, they just needed to be held. 2 days later, Leah returned to the city. The weather had turned. A light drizzle kissed her windshield on the drive home, matching her introspective mood. Her apartment was exactly how she left it. A jacket draped over the dining chair, an empty mug in the sink, and a forgotten pile of books on the coffee table. But something felt different. Not the apartment, her. She moved with a strange lightness, as though she had quietly put something heavy down. On a whim, she pulled down a box from the top shelf of her closet. A dusty one, taped at the edges and yellowing from time. She hadn't opened it in years. Inside, the remnants of her past with Daniel. A photo booth strip, the one they'd taken at Coney Island the first summer they were together. A postcard he had sent her from a business trip in London. A dried rose from their 3rd anniversary dinner, pressed between pages of an old book. At the bottom of the box was a smaller envelope, addressed to her in his handwriting. She froze. She didn't remember this. Hands trembling, she opened it. "Leah, if you're reading this, then I never found the right moment to say goodbye the way I should have. You deserve that. You always have. I know things ended quietly between us, too. Quietly. I kept waiting for some final, cinematic moment that never came. But the truth is, I was scared. Scared of hurting you. Scared of admitting that we weren't working. But mostly scared of what it meant to walk away from someone I loved. I did love you, deeply, but love isn't always enough. I think you knew that too. If you ever find this, I hope it brings peace, not pain. I hope you've found joy, the kind that doesn't rely on someone else's shadow. Thank you for 6 beautiful, complicated, unforgettable years." Daniel. Leah sat on the floor, letter in her lap, eyes blurred by tears she didn't feel ashamed of. He had tried to say goodbye, not in person, not with fireworks, but with honesty. It was strange how healing could come in fragments, how sometimes the closure you needed arrived long after the door had shut. She put the letter back in the envelope and placed it on her nightstand. Later that week, she visited her parents. The suburbs always made her feel a little like a kid again. Familiar creaks in the stairs, the smell of laundry detergent that never changed. "Guess who I ran into at the farmer's market?" her mother said as she poured tea. "Mrs. Delgado. She still asks about you. Swears you should have gone into teaching." Leah smiled. "She always thought I'd make a good kindergarten teacher." "Well, you always had patience. Lord knows I didn't pass that down." They laughed, and the conversation turned to recipes, garden gossip, and distant cousins. But Leah's mind kept drifting to the attic. After dinner, while her mother fussed with leftovers, Leah slipped upstairs. The attic door groaned as she pulled it open. The air was musty, the kind of stale that carried decades of memory. She climbed the narrow wooden stairs and flicked on the dim bulb. Boxes were stacked high. Childhood toys, old decorations, books her parents swore they'd read again. In the corner was a box labeled Leah, college in her father's handwriting. She knelt, brushing off the dust, and opened it. Inside were notebooks, sketch pads, and, buried, beneath a faded hoodie, a small photo album, one she hadn't seen in years. She flipped it open. There they were, photos of her and Daniel in their early 20s. Younger, messier, bright-eyed and full of plans. A shot of them in Central Park with hot dogs. Another of Daniel asleep on her shoulder during a train ride, mouth slightly open. The kind of picture you only take when you love someone deeply enough to see beauty in their drool. She laughed softly, then she turned the page and stopped. It was a picture she didn't remember taking. The two of them on her old apartment balcony, late at night. She had her head on his chest. He was looking at her, not at the camera, just her. He looked in love, and so did she. Leah closed the album and exhaled. That version of her felt like a different person, and maybe she was. Maybe you had to be to love someone that completely, and then survive the absence of it. She put the photo album back in the box, but kept one picture, the balcony one. Not to mourn what was, but to remember that love had once lived here. Real, flawed, tender. She went downstairs with a lighter heart. The next morning, Leah walked to her favorite cafe. The rain had stopped, leaving the city washed and glistening. She ordered her usual chai latte, oat milk, cinnamon on top, and sat by the window. A man near the counter dropped his phone, and she instinctively leaned down to pick it up. He smiled. "Thanks, that was clumsy." "No problem," she said. They made brief small talk, weather, coffee, books, and then he returned to his table. She didn't ask his name, but she didn't need to. Something had shifted. Something inside her was open again. Later, she pulled out her sketchbook and began to draw. Something she hadn't done in months. Not for work, just for herself. Abstract shapes, light flowing lines. There was no purpose other than movement. It felt good to move. She drew until her fingers ached. That night, back in her apartment, she lit a candle and pulled the invitation from the shelf. She read it one last time, then folded it and placed it inside the same envelope as Daniel's letter. A chapter closed. Gently, she smiled to herself. For the first time in a long while, it didn't feel like the end of something. It felt like the beginning. Leah hadn't planned on attending the community festival. It was one of those bright, too loud, too crowded neighborhood events she typically avoided. Chalk drawings on sidewalks, cotton candy spinning in sticky clouds, local bands fumbling through covers of 90s hits. The kind of event made for young families and couples with picnic blankets, not single 30-somethings with a tote full of groceries and a Sunday to-do list. But something tugged at her that morning. Maybe it was the sun breaking through the window after a long stretch of grey, or maybe it was the way the silence in her apartment felt more like stillness than loneliness. She tucked her sketchpad into her bag and walked the 10 blocks to the park. Children raced past her legs with painted faces and balloon swords. Someone was handing out free apple cider by the gazebo. There was a band, mediocre but earnest, and the scent of food trucks drifted through the air. Grilled cheese, shawarma, something cinnamon sweet. Leah smiled. She didn't feel out of place, like she thought she might. She wandered toward a stand where a local artist was painting watercolor portraits. The woman behind the table smiled warmly. "Looking for a picture of yourself or someone special?" Leah hesitated. "Just looking today. I like watching other people's faces when they see themselves in art." "Ah," the woman said, nodding. A fellow observer. That label sat nicely with Leah. She had always watched more than she participated, not out of shyness, but curiosity. The world was louder and brighter than people gave it credit for, and Leah had a knack for noticing the small things others missed. She moved on, sipping cider, eventually settling on a patch of grass beneath a sprawling oak. Her sketchpad came out. She didn't think, just drew. Faces in the crowd, the arc of a child jumping, the curve of a father's back as he bent to tie a tiny shoe. It felt effortless. By the time she looked up, an hour had passed. "Those are really good." She turned. It was the man from the cafe, same warm eyes, same easy stance. He held a cup of coffee and a reusable water bottle. His dog, a golden retriever, sat obediently beside him, tail thumping the grass. "You again," Leah said, startled but not unpleasantly. "Let me guess. Chai with oat milk?" He laughed. "Close, cappuccino, but I'm flattered you remember." Small. "Coffee world," she said. "I'm Owen," he offered. "Leah, mind if we join you?" She hesitated a beat, then nodded. The dog flopped beside her like an old friend. She scratched his head. "What's his name?" "Benson. He's more social than I am." "Clearly," she said, watching Benson try to lick her sketchpad. Owen peered over her shoulder. "You drew that just now?" Leah nodded. "That's incredible. You captured that kid's energy exactly." "I like drawing moments," she said. "Not just people, the movement between things." They sat quietly for a while, watching the crowd. Then Owen said, "Do you come to this festival often?" She smiled. "First time, actually. I grew up coming here. Used to hate it as a teenager. Thought it was lame. Now it feels kind of grounding." I guess I'm building new traditions, Leah said softly. He looked at her, thoughtful. That's a good way to put it. Over the next few weeks, Leah found herself doing more things like that, saying yes instead of maybe. She signed up for a local art class on Wednesdays. Nothing serious, just charcoal and paper and a bunch of strangers learning to shade fruit. But she loved it, the imperfections, the laughter, the freedom. She also started volunteering on Saturdays, helping kids at a nearby community center with art projects, construction paper and glue sticks and glitter. So much glitter. It stuck to her sleeves and elbows and hair, but she didn't mind. There was something pure about how kids made art. No pressure, no judgment, just color. Once, a shy girl named Amina looked up at her and said, "I think my tree looks weird." Leah had crouched beside her and whispered, "The best trees are weird. It means they're alive." Amina had smiled wide and drawn 3 more crooked branches. Owen began appearing more frequently too, sometimes at the cafe, sometimes in the park, sometimes just a quick wave across the street as he jogged past with Benson in tow. There was no pressure, no overt flirting. Just the comfortable repetition of 2 lives slowly overlapping. One Sunday, he invited her to a neighborhood movie night, a giant inflatable screen, lawn chairs, popcorn in brown paper bags. They watched The Princess Bride beneath a sky full of stars. He didn't try to hold her hand, didn't try to make anything into something it wasn't. When the credits rolled and everyone began packing up, he turned to her and said, "That was nice." She nodded. "It really was." He smiled. "Let me know if you ever want to come." Again. One evening, Leah sat in her living room, surrounded by soft lamplight and the quiet hum of city life outside her window. She pulled out the picture she'd kept from the attic, the balcony photo. She held it a moment, then slid it into a small wooden box, closing the lid gently. It had served its purpose. In its place, she placed a new photo, one a stranger had taken at the festival, later posted to a community Facebook group. It showed her sitting under the oak tree, sketch pad in lap, with Benson at her side and Owen standing behind them, looking down at her with a crooked grin. The caption read, "The artist, the dog, and the unexpected." She liked that. It didn't replace the old memories. It didn't try to, but it made room for something new. One afternoon, as autumn painted the leaves in fire-colored streaks, Leah sat on her fire escape, sipping tea and watching the wind scatter gold along the sidewalk. Her phone buzzed. Owen. "Hey, want to join me and Benson at the park?" No pressure, just crisp air and terrible frisbee skills. Leah. "I'm in, but I make no promises about saving Benson from his own enthusiasm." She grabbed her jacket, tied her boots, and laughed when she saw a piece of glitter still stuck to her. Cuff from Saturday's art class. It didn't matter. The old traditions were fading, yes. But in their place, new ones were quietly, beautifully forming, born from laughter, from stillness, from a willingness to stay present, and from that simple but powerful thing, choosing to show up. It had been nearly 2 months since Leah saw Jake. She knew this because she had started counting forward rather than backward. There was a time when every significant moment was measured in relation to him. 3 days since we talked, a week since he moved out, 2 months since I saw his mom at the market. But lately her mind had shifted. It counted things like 3 Saturdays of art classes, 2 festivals since the park, 1 dog who stole her sandwich and her heart. So when the knock came at her apartment door on a cool Friday afternoon, and she opened it to find Jake standing there, her breath caught, but not in the way it used to. He looked older, not in years, but in weight. His shoulders were slumped just slightly. His eyes carried something she couldn't quite name. Regret, maybe, or uncertainty. He held a small paper bag and a nervous half-smile. "Hey, Leah," he said. "Jake," she replied, voice even. "This is a surprise." I know. I probably should have called. She leaned against the doorframe. Probably. He shifted. Can I come in for a minute? I won't stay long. She hesitated, then opened the door wider. The apartment had changed. Brighter throw pillows, a large potted plant she'd somehow kept alive, a framed print of a strange, beautiful watercolor she bought from a street artist just 2 weeks earlier. The space felt lighter. Jake looked around. Looks different. I like it better this way. He nodded, stepping inside and holding out the bag. I brought cinnamon rolls. From that place near Union and Grant. Your favorite, right? Leah raised an eyebrow. You remembered. Hard to forget someone's favorite food when they talk about it every Sunday morning for 3 years. She accepted the bag and placed it on the counter. What's this about, Jake? He sat on the edge of the armchair, not quite settling in. I ran into someone, he began. Tessa, actually. Leah blinked. Tessa? Your wife? He winced. Ex-wife now. Her lips parted in surprise. She hadn't heard. It ended a few months ago, he continued. Things fell apart. For a while I thought it was just the pressure. New marriage, new kid. But the truth is, we weren't right. We rushed it. Leah stayed quiet. She didn't feel pity exactly. Just a slow, blooming understanding of something she used to wonder about. I didn't come here to dump my problems on you, he added, quickly. I owe you an apology. A real one. She crossed her arms, watching him. Go on. I left you broken and confused. I let you believe it was your fault. I couldn't even give you the decency of closure. I was selfish. And when I started over with someone else, I convinced myself that it meant what we had wasn't real. His voice cracked slightly. But it was. It was real, and I'm sorry I treated it like a chapter I could just tear out. Leah looked at him for a long moment. She felt the weight of old wounds, like faded bruises under the skin, tender when pressed, but not bleeding anymore. I've already forgiven you, she said softly, but I needed time. I needed space to realize that what happened wasn't about me. Jake swallowed hard. I'm glad you're doing okay. You look happy. I am, she said, and she meant it. He stood. I won't keep you. I just needed to say that. She walked him to the door. Before he stepped out, he turned to her. I saw your name at the community center. The mural project, you're listed as one of the artists, she smiled. We're painting it next month. Kids helped design it. That's incredible. You always had that in you. He hesitated. I hope you find someone who sees it too. I already have, she said. It starts with me. He nodded. Goodbye, Leah. Goodbye, Jake. She closed the door gently. Then she exhaled, deep and full, like a sigh that had waited years to be released. The next day, Leah met Owen and Benson at the park. Leaves crunched underfoot, and the air smelled like wood smoke and approaching rain. They tossed a frisbee until Benson was too tired to chase anymore, and flopped in a pile of red leaves, like a furry king on a crunchy throne. They walked the long loop around the pond, quiet but comfortable. Can I ask you something? Leah said finally. Of course, Owen replied. Do you believe people always come back? He looked up at the sky, thoughtful. I think some people do, the ones who still have something to learn or something to give back. Others, they're meant to stay gone. She nodded. My ex showed up yesterday. Jake. Owen didn't flinch, just listened. He wanted to apologize. It was strange, but also needed, like closing a book I didn't realize I was still holding. How do you feel? She paused. Lighter. Not because he's gone, but because I finally let go. He smiled gently. That's brave. They reached the park bench they often ended up at, the one with initials carved into the wood and a little plaque that read, In memory of shared laughter. She sat. You've been patient with me. I don't keep a stopwatch on people's healing, he said. We all arrive in our own time. She turned toward him. I think I'm ready for something new. He looked at her then, not with expectation, but with clarity. Then let's build it slowly, no pressure, just presence, like new traditions, he grinned. Exactly like that. That evening, Leah sat with her sketchbook and drew, not something from memory, not something imagined, but a moment from that very day. Owen laughing as Benson dove nose first into a pile of leaves, and Leah in the background, smiling in a way she hadn't in years. She tore the page from the book, framed it, and placed it next to the one of the oak tree from the festival. 2 new pages, 2 new traditions. The past, she realized, didn't vanish. It simply stopped leading the way. The sun cast a golden haze over the community center parking lot as volunteers arrived one by one. Brushes in hand, paint-streaked overalls tied at the waist or splashed across sleeves. The mural wall stretched across the south-facing side of the building, blank, inviting, and full of promise. Leah stood with her hands on her hips, taking it all in. Her name was listed on the flyer taped to the bulletin board, Project Lead. Leah Hart. She still didn't quite believe it. A few months ago she'd been adrift, unsure of her footing or future. But now, here she was, about to oversee a massive public art project that she had helped design alongside children from the community. Children like Lily, the curly-haired firecracker who had drawn a giant sunflower with faces in the petals, and Marcus, who insisted there be a rocket ship because art should fly. The final sketch had it all: nature, movement, faces of every shade, a dog with oversized ears, and even a rainbow. It wasn't sophisticated by art world standards, but it was joyful, and that felt more important. Morning came a familiar voice from behind. Leah turned. Owen stood with a tray of iced coffees and a leash in his other hand. Benson, tail wagging and tongue out, was already trotting up to greet her like she was the highlight of his day. "You're saving lives," she joked, grabbing one of the coffees. "Caffeine is love in liquid form," Owen replied, grinning. "You didn't have to come," she said, though she was glad he did. "I wanted to. This mural matters. You matter." There wasn't a flutter in her chest like there once had been when Jake used to say things like that. No nervous twist or second-guessing. What she felt now was deeper, warmth, stability, a sense of being seen and choosing to be seen in return. By mid-morning, the wall was alive with color. Music played from a nearby speaker, something upbeat and full of rhythm. Children dipped brushes into bright buckets of paint, their laughter a kind of harmony. Leah moved among them, helping guide strokes, encouraging choices, suggesting blends. It was messy, chaotic, imperfect, and utterly beautiful. At one point, Lily pulled on her sleeve. "Miss Leah, can I add a butterfly on the tree?" "Absolutely." She smiled. "Right where the branches split, I think it'll fly best." And as Lily painted, Owen leaned against the wall nearby, watching Leah with a quiet reverence. "You're in your element," he said. She glanced at him. "I didn't think I'd find this again. Purpose, joy. You created it." She paused. "You know, for a long time, I thought closure meant getting answers, or maybe some kind of emotional justice. But it wasn't about that. What was it then? Letting go of the version of myself that needed to be chosen to feel worthy." Owen said nothing, just reached for her free hand. She didn't pull away. Later that afternoon, the mural was nearly finished. The sky was now painted, with swirls of pink and blue, a subtle homage to a sunset Leah had seen years ago that once made her cry. At the far end of the mural, a little path had been added. It curved into a horizon painted with gold. She stood back to admire it, and in that moment, she heard a soft voice behind her. "I saw the flyer. I figured I'd stop by." Leah turned to see Tessa. She hadn't seen her since the wedding years ago, when Leah was still wearing polite smiles and pretending the pain didn't burn behind her teeth. Tessa looked different now. Older too, tired perhaps, but softer. She held a small boy's hand. He was maybe 3, with Jake's eyes and a smudge of dirt on his cheek. "This is Elias," Tessa said, gently urging the boy forward. "Eli, can you say hello?" "Hi," the boy mumbled, eyeing the paint. "He loves to draw," Tessa added. Leah crouched, smiling. "Nice to meet you, Eli. Want to add something to the mural?" The boy looked up at his mother, who nodded. Leah led him to a small patch near the rocket ship. She handed him a brush and dipped it in yellow. "Right here," she said. "Let's make a star." Eli dabbed the paint in shaky bursts. Leah steadied his hand, guiding it. When he was done, he stepped back, proud. "You're a real artist now," she said. He beamed. Tessa waited quietly as Leah washed Eli's hands and helped him back to her side. Then for the first time, Tessa met Leah's eyes. "I'm sorry," she said. Leah blinked. "I know we never talked. I know I hurt you too, even if I didn't mean to. But I saw what Jake did to you, and eventually, I saw what he did to me. I thought I could build something whole out of someone broken." Leah nodded. "I know that story." Tessa hesitated. "Are you okay?" "I am," Leah said truthfully. "I really am." "Good." Tessa looked around. "This is beautiful." Leah smiled. "Thank you." They stood for a moment, 2 women who had both held the same heart and let it fall. Not enemies, not rivals. Just 2 people trying to build better lives for the sake of their own healing, and in Tessa's case, for her son. Eli tugged his mother's hand. "Can we come back tomorrow?" "We'll see," she said, and glanced once more at Leah. "Take care of yourself. You too." And just like that, they were gone. That evening, with the sun casting long orange rays across the street, the mural glowed. It wasn't perfect. Some lines were uneven. A few handprints had smudged into accidental blobs. But it was real, vibrant, and filled with hundreds of tiny intentions. Owen approached, holding 2 sandwiches. "The artist must be fed." Leah laughed and sat beside him on the grass. They ate in silence for a while, watching the kids still, running around, their laughter echoing through the yard. "Do you think this kind of peace lasts?" she asked softly. "I think it does," he replied, "when it's built on truth, on effort." She turned to him. "I'm not afraid of starting again anymore." "That's good. I don't know where this us might lead, but I'd like to find out." Owen looked at her, something tender in his gaze. "Slowly, slowly," she agreed. He raised his sandwich. "To new beginnings." She clinked hers against his. "And to letting go of old endings." Benson barked in agreement, rolling in the grass between them. And as the sky faded into twilight, Leah leaned back, watching the stars appear, tiny, patient lights, waiting to be seen. She smiled. She had found closure, and more importantly, she had found herself.